and we are recording. And I don't know if we're going to have a professional scripted intro or not, but in the meantime, this is my best attempt at a dummy intro. So here we are, chapter 2 of our birthday saga. So we just finished speaking with Chris and Jamie about the earliest days of To Write Love on Our Arms and what it looked like to use technology, use social media, use a platform that was made for connecting people to connect people on a deeper level. So today we have, or I guess right now, we have Bianca and Katie who work very intimately with our social media communications strategy and really not even just a strategy, but speaking directly to so many people that interact with To Write Love on Our Arms through a screen, through social media, through different varieties of technology. So it's my honor to introduce you to my friends who you may have met before. But let's start here. Katie, who are you? Where are you from? What role do you serve in the organization? And then we'll move over to Bianca.
Sure. So my name is Katie Mumper. I am officially the social media and communication manager here at To Write Love on Her Arms. And I grew up in Pennsylvania, spent most of my life there. I lived in Atlanta for about 6 years before coming to Florida to work for TWLOHA in 2018. So I've been here for about 2.5 years and have spent the last one of those years working from my dining room in Melbourne, Florida. So that's been fun.
Relatable. Very relatable. Yeah, Bianca.
Hi, I'm Bianca Mujica. I am born and raised in Texas. I am from deep South Texas, but currently living in Dallas. I was an intern at To Write Love on Her Arms in the spring of 2019, just a couple months after Katie started. And then I started doing part-time work, and now I am the community care and social media coordinator, which sometimes I have trouble remembering that whole title, but basically, Katie and I just work together a lot with connecting with our supporters on the different platforms we have and getting our message out and making sure that people feel seen and heard and cared for.
Well, let's start there. All the places that people feel seen and heard and cared for, and this time frame, probably more so than any other, it's been the unique way that people, the only way really that people have been able to engage with To Write Love on Our Arms. So when we use this blanket term of social media, Katie, what all goes into that? What are all the platforms? What are all the venues that we are carrying forth the conversation of hope and help into?
Sure. So currently that is Instagram and Instagram stories, as well as Instagram TV, aka doing live streams on Instagram, Facebook, which also includes doing live streams sometimes. That is Twitter as well. And sometimes we do Twitter chats. And then we have very recently, I believe November of last year, we added TikTok to our social media toolbox, I guess. So we're starting to venture into what it looks like to create videos, to share hope and to talk about the message of To Write Love there as well. And then we also actually in August of last year, when we launched our World Suicide Prevention Day campaign, we also launched our community text platform, which is a way for people to stay in touch with us via text messages. So I think those are all of the main ways that we are interacting with people digitally, besides then also our emails, which is kind of a whole other part of communication world.
Whole other part. Yeah. So when you first came on to help us do that better, what were the platforms on day one that you were prepared to help bring TWLOHA into?
Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we were just kind of starting to experiment with Instagram stories. I think they had just started to take off and be a thing at that point in time. So that was kind of where I jumped into what was happening in social media world for To Write Love. Yep.
Right on. Yeah, I asked that just to draw out just in 2.5 years, how
Mm-hmm.
much has changed. Like several of those that you listed did not exist when you began to do this job. And I think that's like such a unique thing about our experience as people that grew up with computers, that grew up with internet access, that grew up with this idea of social media. And I mean, Bianca, that's made up more of your life than it has Katie and myself. But to kick it over to you, Bianca, what role has To Write Love on Our Arms played in shaping how you personally discuss mental health?
Um, it has probably had the biggest role of anything else in my life. I discovered To Write Love when I was about 14. Um, so I was in middle school, and mental health was still very new to me, not only like as a concept, but the language surrounding it and understanding how to talk to people about it. So when I discovered To Write Love, it spoke to me because it was so poetic and very, very empathizing in a way that other organizations were not. There was a lot of facts and like suicide is the second leading cause of death, or but with To Write Love on Arms, it was like suicide may feel like it's the only option for you right now, but your life matters. And that was something that I wasn't hearing anywhere else. And so when that's the first thing that really speaks to you, that just paves the way for every conversation you have going forward. So I was really lucky that I was able to have a youth chapter in college, and that was where I really started to hone in on how to talk about mental health. And having spent like all my spare time on the website and reading blogs and basically like absorbing every piece of TWLOHA content I could, I had a pretty good grasp on what sort of messages resonate with people and what kind of what kind of phrases really speak to the hope and the help that gets people to continue living their stories. And so now, what that looks like is when I see a comment or I see a new platform, I think, what do I know about this person? What do I know about their interactions with us? And how can I tailor a message to them? So, if we're talking about eating disorders, for example, I'll think about like maybe they just need to hear that they're enough or that they deserve the space they occupy or that they don't have to change who they are to deserve to live on this planet. And without To Write Love, I wouldn't have the same knowledge and the experience to be able to connect with people in a way that I could be sure really, really speaks to who they are and what they're struggling with.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that, there's a number of ways to communicate this idea that you're not alone. And it takes way more intensive research to come up with the numbers, to come up with the impact metrics, but it takes another sense of energy to talk about the one person that you may be talking about. Like it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm one of X hundred of thousands or millions of people that live with this mental health challenge, but am I just getting lost in that number? What does it look like to feel seen, to be heard, to feel understood on an individual level? And I love, yeah, I love that you were connecting those dots. Now, Bianca, you said that you learned about us when you were 14. Do you remember? Was that through a screen? Was that through a phone or a computer? And what year
Yeah.
was that?
So that was 2010, I believe. And I had a friend who told me to listen to the song To Write Love in Our Arms. And I found two on YouTube, and one of them kind of was called To Write Love in Our Arms. There was like some weird bootleg version that somebody had uploaded. But basically at the end of both of these songs, there was the little like, your story is important, hope and hope is real. And I thought that was really interesting. And I was also really confused because people in the comments were talking about this is an organization and I love it so much. And I was like, wait, whoa, what is happening? Why is there a song and also an organization? So I Googled it, and that's how I found it. And then I just never really stopped Googling it because a teenager in
To this day,
2010.
Bianca is
Yeah.
still Googling.
Yeah, I haven't bookmarked anything.
Incredible. Now, hey, you and I both, man, my tabs are hurting right now. Now, Katie, same question, but also want to add a caveat. So the first question is, what role has TWLOHA played in shaping how you discuss mental health? And, to take it a step further, has working for To Write Love changed how you communicate or just view the world around you, maybe by just scope or maybe by just how you frame conversations as a whole?
Yeah. So I believe I was finding To Write Love around the same time that Bianca was. I was not 14 and not in middle school. I was would have been out of college 4 years at that point in time. So I'm not going to do the math and figure out how old I was, but y'all can just go with that. So I, at the time, was a volunteer youth leader at my church. And I had students who were coming to me and sharing things that they were struggling with. And one in particular who struggled with self-injury. And this was like the third church that I had been attending through college and whatever, and had been a volunteer at, and had never received any kind of training about how to have conversations around mental health with middle schoolers and high schoolers, let alone talking about my own story and experience, which included a very acute depression during college. So I, again, had seen the name various places, finally got around to being like, let me just Google this and find out what the heck this is, and found the website. And I am a writer. And so I've always believed in the power of story and stories to help us to understand and connect with each other. And so just reading through the blog was incredible for me in that sense of, okay, like, I don't understand this student in particular who is struggling with self-injury, but there are other people out there who this is also part of their story. And so this is a space for me to be able to direct them to be able to go and hear from other people who are experiencing that. It gave me questions to ask and just a better understanding of how to have those conversations and to really just be a person to sit and listen as they were sharing whatever it was that they felt comfortable sharing with me. And I think that was super important to be able to understand. I think kind of going off with what Bianca was saying, that individual connection.
I'm sorry. One second.
That's okay.
Spam risk phone call. That's so annoying. Could have sworn I'd put on Do Not Disturb. Okay, so you may want to back up about 30 seconds. So sorry about that.
All good. So going off what Bianca was saying about having it be more than just numbers and making those individual connections, I think the stories on To Write Love's website and being able to put that into practice in my own life of making those one-on-one connections with people, being able to have those words of encouragement to say to them. And then also just starting to have some words and beginnings of understanding from my own story, and knowing that what I did experience in college was depression and that I probably should have gone to a counselor and talked with someone about it, but I didn't know how to do that at the time. And I didn't have the words to talk about what I was experiencing. So I think over time, as I've continued to follow To Write Love on various social media platforms, and hear more of the stories, to hear more of the story of To Write Love, to understand more of what the organization was trying to accomplish. That helped me to start to understand better how to have conversations with people, how to share my own story, how to create that space for others to say, that's me too. And how can we help each other to get through whatever that is, and to know that there's hope, that this isn't the end of the story and that there's more to come. So I think that answered the first question. I forget what the second question was.
No, and I think that did hit the second question also, and I think that leads to a third question. I love your story about this was initially a resource of how to connect with an individual within your community. The hope was, no one had to convince your heart that what was happening before you was worthy of attention, but you needed a bit more language around what was happening. You needed a bit more understanding. And I'm so glad that To Write Love at that point, really its infancy, was able to provide some sense of clarity for that. So we've seen how it can be big in a website, and then shrink down to an individual, and then kind of as an accordion expand again. Bianca, you were sharing that you saw a YouTube video that initially piqued your interest. You did some Googling to learn a little bit more. But how did you, as a late middle schooler, early high schooler, keep tabs on the movement as it began to grow?
Well, to continue on the Google trend, I would just Google it on a regular basis, because when I first learned about it, like Katie said, the blog and the storytelling was really, really captivating to me. So, what I would do is pretty much every day after school, I would just look up the website and read the latest blog. If there was a news article that TWLOHA had published about, like, I remember there was one about brain research, I would read that. And I didn't understand half of what was happening, but if TWLOHA put it out, I would read it. So I just really would do anything I could to keep up with the movement, but I didn't have social media at the time. So whatever was happening on Facebook or Twitter, I wasn't plugged into. It was completely on the website and a few bands that I guess were making songs about it. Um, and then I went to Warped Tour in 2011 or 2012 and saw the booth and got my first T-shirt. And that just solidified in my mind that, like, seeing people there, getting to do the Fears versus Dreams, um, and just being able to experience it firsthand really solidified in my brain that, like, this is something I want to commit to. And so I eventually did bookmark the website and just continued to read up on what was happening. And then once I caught up with the times and got social media, TWLOHA was one of the first accounts that I followed on all of them, because I see my friends all the time. Why do I need to see what they're posting? I want to keep up with an organization that is actively like a part of my life, and helping me connect with other people. So, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So when you first started getting onto social media, when you first started finding this as a forum to express who Bianca is, was there a go-to one? Because for a long time, like, the playing field was not level. Like, you had MySpace, that was kind of the Wild West, and then you had Facebook, which was perhaps a bit wilder of the West. But then you also had uh, Twitter that was just starting, and that was very micro in its storytelling, right? It was 140 characters at its onset, so the language was kind of different for a bit. Do you recall which social media platform you gravitated to the most, or which I guess felt most TWLOHA? Most like TWLOHA in those early days of your social media use.
I think the first one that I really spent the most time on was Twitter. Um, I don't remember exactly what was being posted. I just remember seeing the little logo and just scrolling through. But even with like the social media, I spent most of my time on the blog. And I think one of the first blogs that I actually really connected with and that I saved was, I think it was called 7 Billion and Growing, which I do believe is a Chad Moses blog. So to bring it full circle, yeah, I think it might still be bookmarked on my phone.
Oh wow, that's incredibly flattering. Again, with the bookmarks, they never let you
Yeah,
down.
never.
Incredible. Katie, same to you. What social media channels do you recall, um, besides the initial website or the landing pages?
Mhm.
What did you go to in order to keep tabs on what TWLOHA was up to?
Yeah, Twitter was also for me at that point in time very much where I was spending most of my time. So that was where I was following a lot of people. Because I am a writer, the whole trying to create a complete thought in 140 characters was intriguing and frustrating to me. So being able to do that, but then also just it felt really easy to be able to share things from people like Jamie or from the organization and be able to, all you did to do was hit retweet and there you go. Other people get to see what you're seeing as well. I again appreciating the blog and kind of the longer form of Facebook for that aspect of things. But Twitter was just kind of like this constant stream of consciousness, which is sometimes how I write anyway. So being able to be a part of that and interacting with a lot of different people. I also am an introvert. So social media for me has always been a fantastic way to connect with people because I can do it for a period of time and then I can put it away and all of that. So yeah, so definitely Twitter. I also remember I always have a hard time like pinpointing exactly when I made the discovery or finally Googled what To Write Love was, but I vividly remember retweeting as much as I could for the Chase giving the $1 million. And so like,
Yes.
and then just being on Twitter that night, like just trying to keep up with what was going on and seeing if we're going to win. And yeah, so that was definitely where I was spending my time.
I
That
have a
was
side
wild.
note. On the Chase Giving, I wasn't allowed to have a Facebook at the time, but I knew it was happening. So I was texting every person in my phone and I was like, "Hey, do you have a Facebook?" And if they said yes, and I would say, "Cool, here's the link. Go vote here, do this, do that." And a lot of them were like, okay." And then some of them like I saw them at school so they knew that this was like a really big deal to me. But I just remember spending like afternoon after afternoon texting friends that I didn't even see anymore and just asking them like, "Please vote for this on Facebook." Um, so yeah, that's a
That's
fun anecdote.
wild. Yeah. I remember I was in Texas. I was in Dallas Fort Worth when we found out that we won. I could take you to the exact spot I was standing. That was such, I mean, for lack of a better term, like such an amazing payoff for a hugely frenetic,
Yeah.
time. It was, yeah, that was wild. That was a cool feeling. But let's not live too far in the past here. Uh, moving from there, and again, I love getting these little nuggets from Bianca about just being a younger person and
Mhm.
not having the parental say so that social media was okay. Like there, you had to really be judicious in how you would find ways to interact with us. Maybe that was texting friends to tell them to use their social media prowess. And I love that grassroots feeling that if I can't do it directly, then maybe I can be a voice for advocacy and change within my community and getting creative on how to accomplish those things. But as it pertains specifically to conversations of mental health, how have y'all, and we'll start with Bianca, how have you seen conversations online regarding mental health evolve and change over the course of your social media career?
Ooh, well, when I first started on social media, um, as a high schooler on Twitter and Facebook, it was a lot of angsty teens not really knowing how to express themselves, very much an emo kid. So, that's how my friends and I would express ourselves, like with the eyeliner and My Chemical Romance. Um, and so sometimes the way that we would talk about like we're struggling is by sharing lyrics or by like posting selfies with like a band shirt or um, really anything we could do to like tell people, hey, like we relate to this for a reason without really saying it because it was still taboo. And even when I was telling people like, hey, go vote for TWLOHA or hey, there's this really good organization for mental health, I still had trouble telling people like I'm struggling with depression or I'm struggling with an eating disorder. And I didn't know that there were other people who were going through that because I didn't know that's what it was. And for a long time, when I would see a counselor or a doctor, they wouldn't say those words. They wouldn't tell me that's what it was for whatever reason. And so now that I see people who have accounts that are specifically like to share their mental health journey and to encourage other people, that's really inspiring because that's always what I wanted to do, but I never really knew how to. And I never really had the social media savvy as a kid to do it because I started so late, which is ironic considering my job now. But I I just remember like getting older and seeing these platforms evolving and seeing people using it as a way to just talk about their daily lives. And I think we kind of make fun of the people who like would post photos of their food, but those are also the people that probably are sharing when they're struggling and get to like talk to people and help others feel less alone. So there's definitely been a lot of change in what people are more willing to open up about and how they do it and how directly they speak about what they're struggling with. Um, but I think we're coming into an era where it's just commonplace. And if you want to find a mental health corner of the internet, there is there is a space to do that on every single platform. There is no shortage, and there are accounts for everything from OCD to ADHD to dissociative identity disorder, like anything you can think of. So I'm really, really grateful to see that it has evolved from selfies with an emo band to actually saying the words out loud and letting people know that it's okay to do the same.
Yeah, that's really interesting how we've seen kind of an ebb and flow, like a tidal shift in how people portray themselves, portray their lives on social media. And not that it's ever going to be, that the society is all going to be just positive and just here are the best parts of my life. But I remember that being like such an unhealthy season of the internet was people like our friend Tiana Soto calls it duck syndrome. Like it looks like you're gliding across a pond pretty smoothly, but no one's seeing how violently you're flipping your feet in order to just stay afloat. So often the conversation was, social media, that's just where people show the best parts of their life. And then you get this comparative joy versus comparative grief. Like, well, my life doesn't look like that. Why not? But I feel like recently there's been this sense of honesty, like people talking about not having the best day. Katie, from your perspective, as someone that spent a good portion of your professional life in mass communications and the likes, how have you seen, even before you started working for Trite Love, how have you seen and how do you remember conversations of mental health, growing, evolving, maybe taking some steps backwards? Just open forum. What's your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of what Bianca said. Emo is not a part of my story, but music has always been a powerful thing for me. And so, using the song lyrics to be able to express those things that we don't have the words for. But
Look,
I think
Les Mis is emo. Okay.
that is probably actually pretty true. That's a good point. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, again, like having social media be a way for me to connect with people without having the actual like face-to-face connection that can sometimes be draining for me as an introvert. And I agree. I think especially at the beginning, especially with what even Facebook was originally created for, the idea of presenting your best self in whatever you decided that should be, which was probably based on what the world told you that should be, was the thing, and that's kind of where we started with all of it. I think for me, it almost feels too like as I started to be able to talk more about my story and to share more openly, I was starting to find other people who were also experiencing that same freedom in the world of social media. Because I think there still is, people talk a lot about how it's easier to be honest with strangers than it is to be with people that you know, because there isn't this like, I'm going to disappoint them, or I'm going to prove that I'm not meeting their expectations because they're strangers and they don't know me, they have no expectations. And so I think social media created the space for us to do that regularly of, yes, there are people following me who know me. And so there's like that initial kind of, oh, but what if this person sees this? But there's also there are other people out there that, we've interacted maybe a little bit through responding to each other's tweets or commenting on each other's posts. And so, being able to have kind of that space of, I can put this out there, and if people respond to it well, then great. And if not, I can always take it down and then I don't have to, see the comments or responses or whatever. And so kind of just being able to like experiment, I guess, a little bit with being more open and being more vulnerable, being more honest about what really is happening. And then also to go back to the power of stories is, seeing other people talk about it starts to help you have the words to be able to say, if I'm struggling with depression in some capacity and hearing someone talk about what depression actually looks like for them, what it is that they're experiencing. And then you kind of go, oh, wait, that describes me too. Am I struggling with depression? Should I go talk to a counselor? And so kind of being able to start to have those words, again, going back to, there are a lot of organizations who do spend a lot of time on the research and the numbers, and all of that is very important. It's helpful to know those things to be able to figure out prevention strategies and good treatments and all of those sorts of things. But I think with all of that, there still needs to be these stories that ultimately give people permission and the words to be able to talk about what it is that they are experiencing. And I think we're seeing that more and more as people, celebrities opening up about their own stories makes it easier for the rest of us to say, I think particularly with mental health, because there is such this idea of, well, why would you be depressed because your life is perfect, you have all of these things or whatever, and it's easy for us normal people to have that idea and about each other. And then we look at someone who supposedly has it all with their money and their mansions and their fame, and they're saying, I'm not okay. And it's like, oh, well, if it's okay for them to not be okay, then maybe it's okay for me to not be okay. And to be able to start to acknowledge that and share that. And social media makes it a lot easier for people to see that and to share that and to access that information in a more democratized way than otherwise I only get to know that if I have enough money to buy the magazine off the rack in the grocery store, if they decided to print that story, or to hear that story on the nightly news if I have enough money to have a TV in my house. And again, if they decide to tell that story. And so it's kind of, social media in a lot of ways has gotten rid of the gatekeepers to be able to to not have the focus always be on the good shiny stories, but here's the messy part of everything as well, and that makes it okay for everybody else to share their messiness too.
Yeah. I also dig that idea that when I think of Twitter, I often see this pop up on a retweet every so often, or a quote tweet of people saying, "Hey, reminder, this is a free website." Just kind of taking away some of the barriers that keep us from seeing the real life moments from people that it's hard for us to imagine them being real. That could be because of celebrity status, or it could be just because they are a literal world away. But we're seeing this kind of shrinking happen, especially by my estimation, in the world of mental health. So, Bianca, what do you think is something that sets To Write Love apart? What do we do that feels unique as far as hosting these conversations and curating these conversations about mental health on social media?
I think what sets it apart is what spoke to me from the very beginning. It's the focus on the fact that your story matters and that you are enough as you are, and that you can struggle and that's okay and you're not alone. Um, what always was interesting to me was how TWLOHA has always been very clear about not being the medical professionals, but the bridge to those professionals. And I think in a way that gave me a sense of comfort, because I felt like not only are these people telling stories about experiences that are similar to mine, but they're not doctors. They're probably people just like me. They probably were a kid struggling in middle school just like I am. Um, and so the fact that it's all focused on the community sharing their experiences and being there for each other and fostering those relationships, um, I think that is extremely unique. And a lot of other organizations um, have that as part of their work, but I think that is what TWLOHA is founded on, and that makes all the difference. And I think people know that from the very beginning. And I think that's why we have people that are so willing to share their stories, whether it's in an Instagram DM or an email or a blog. It's because they know that this is the place where stories get shared. This is a place where stories continue, and where stories are encouraged to keep going, even if they were really close to ending. So I think, like, as a young kid who didn't have access to a lot of social media websites, the fact that I was struggling on a daily basis and always thinking about it, TWLOHA had a big enough impact on me that I went through the effort of searching up the website every day. And I think that speaks to how much the blog, which was the bulk of the content at the time, um, resonated with the things I was going through, even if it was something that I wasn't struggling with specifically. Knowing that people were able to speak about their pain in a way that I wasn't, and that the whole point of the organization was to do that, was to share people's experiences so that I could feel less alone. I still haven't encountered a place that I feel does the same thing, at least not in a way that is as empathetic and people focused as we are. Like Katie said, the numbers are important. The research is absolutely necessary, but you need to have that human element. And I think that's something that To Write Love specializes in, and I'm just really proud to be a part of that, because it is really, really cool.
Yeah. Now, Katie, as with your role, specifically with being social media manager, and you're someone that has seen our social media presence evolve while you've been employed here, and certainly before you got here. Like Bianca mentioned, for a long time, the main purpose of our .com was to be a landing place for some of the blog content that was already on MySpace, and then we get to add pieces like find help resources. But so much of it, like Bianca mentioned, it was just an extension of social media. Social media has always been a part of our story, and as someone that is not only managing our social media, but is constantly researching how to do that a little bit better, you have a very unique view on the philosophy of social media. So, through your eyes, why? I mean, because social media has always been a piece, that really the backbone of the organization. Why that? Why not some other avenue to reaching people?
Yeah. I think honestly, this last year has been evidence of why. And it's because sometimes we can't meet people physically face to face. And events and the music world, like that has obviously been a part of all of this from the very beginning. And we love getting to be able to go out and interact with people. I don't get to do it as much as you do, but but those moments have
About the
been
same this year.
yeah, that's true. But the moments of interacting with someone face to face and having that opportunity to be physically present in their lives is really important. But there are 7 billion plus people on the planet in 100 and some different countries, and we can't get everywhere physically, but we can get everywhere for the most part through social media, through the internet. And the power of that is just sometimes is a little overwhelming, to be completely honest. But again, going back to it's this space to be able to connect with people from all over the world, whatever their stories are, whatever their experiences are, and to be able to share hope and to be able to be that bridge to help. Again, without the barriers of having to get a passport and get on a plane and cross borders and all of that. And we can do that in an instant with social media, which is pretty incredible. And, kind of going off a little bit too with what Bianca was saying, that it creates a community space for other people as well. That, we don't have to have a Facebook group, but even just having a Facebook page where people can interact with each other in the comments on a post. We see that all the time. Like, we post what we call late night encouragements on Facebook and Twitter every night. They usually go up somewhere between like 10 and 11:30 Eastern time. And they're just some words from us to remind people to keep going in some way, to remind them that they matter. And the reactions to those, sometimes even through just the words on a page, feel visceral to us. And we understand that somebody might read that and just have this reaction of either relief or it brings up something and it's like, I want to believe that, but I don't know that I can. And, but it creates a space for them to write a comment and to say, I want to believe this, or I don't feel like this is true. And, by the time we don't have the capacity to be online 24/7 responding to people, but by the time we get into the office in the mornings, there very often are already 3 or 4 other people, sometimes even more than that, in the TWLOHA community who have already seen that comment from that person and jumped in and said, I see you, I hear you, I have this experience too, I have a hard time believing it, this is what has been helpful for me. And, by the time we get around to commenting, it's like, well, just what everybody else just said, because that's basically what we were going to say anyway. And that's been amazing too. And, our focus on making sure that we do see and respond to all of those comments. And I think in the beginning, it started with the idea of email and being able to respond to all of those email messages. And we still do that as well. But social media has become even more of a place for us to be able to do that. And the amount of comments on things and replies to tweets has just increased even in the 2 years that I've been here. And being able to we're now, we've been able to put together a team, especially over the last year, as we have been doing more interacting and trying to get more intentional about that, because online space has been the only place to meet with people. And so, we have people who are taking the time to read through every comment, respond to the ones that need encouragement, have a little fun with the people who are, excited about a new merch release or the 5K launch, and those sorts of things. And so it's nice to be able to have some of those lighter moments as well. But just being able to really, truly give people a moment. I was thinking about this earlier about, a lot of times social media can feel a little bit like you're just screaming into the void. And so we have been very intentional about our space in that void to not be a void, and to have it be a place where you can be open and honest and share what it is that you're feeling, and to know that you are heard and that you are seen, and that someone is going to take the time to stop and read what you wrote and figure out how to try to respond to it in a way that's going to give you hope, specifically you. And it's not just, let me copy and paste this. It's not a bot that we've set up. It's not any of those things that, it's not an auto response, but it's an opportunity for us to really, prove to people, to have that human element of, you are a person and you matter and you are an individual. And we want to take the time to acknowledge that, whether you comment one time or you comment 150 times, that we're going to take the time and the space to be able to interact with you and acknowledge your story.
I love that part about, social media doing two things. It enables a conversation to continue. You can like it. You can add a smiley face. You can add some sense of care and emotion. You can comment. You can pass it on to other people within your community. And that's the second part, that it makes a sense of community. So community, has taken on so many different forms over the years, over the lifespan of To Write Love in Our Arms, over our tenure online. And community now, in very recent years, recent months for us, has an entirely new definition. We are part of a text platform called Community. If you aren't familiar with that, we have the ability for you to text our team directly. You can engage with us on campaigns. You can learn more about how to be an advocate in your area. And this isn't just us talking to people and mass text, but this is a chance to chat. Any questions that you have, if you need fundraising tips, if you need to know if we have your size of a shirt, this is a way to directly engage with us. And Bianca, I know that that's a place that you have put a lot of your time, and we've learned quite appropriately, when you didn't have social media, you were just texting. And now this is a way to continue conversations via text. So I can shut up for a second. Bianca, can you just give us a brief overview of what it looks like to engage with To Write Love in Our Arms on our community text number?
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite ways to engage with our supporters because it's very personal. We do schedule texts that go out to everybody, but the responses are just me on my couch typing, responding to whoever is texting back. And what I really like about it is that you can make groups, or you can just send to everybody, or you can send to one person, but you always know that that's going to real people, and that when they respond, they're going to have a real person on the other end. And so it's been really cool to interact with supporters on a very personal level. There have been times where I respond and people are like, "Whoa, I didn't expect a real person to get back to me." There was one time where I responded. I was working in the evening, so I responded around 6 or 7, and somebody was like, "Hey, don't even worry about responding to me. Stop working and go get some rest." So it's been really cool to see that people not only know that there's a real person on the other side, but actively engage and ask questions and tell jokes or share. We have people who send in photos of an ornament that they made with the Worth Living For logo, or like taking their dog on a run for the Miles for Meaning challenge. I mean, people are sending in messages just on a regular basis about things that they're doing, and they may not be sharing them on social media, they may be, but they're sending it to us specifically because they know that not only is it going to mean something to us, but that it's going to continue to create that bond and that community, and build that supportive relationship that not only do we care about so much, but that keeps us going. So I have really enjoyed getting to do new things on community. We have obviously, like, we talk about campaigns and merch and stuff, but we've tried some new things. We do some challenges. So we did a week of text related to Black mental health and eating disorders awareness for their respective weeks. And we're talking about doing more. We have some stuff planned for birthdays and for WSPD, of course. And then also just thinking about, like, how can we ask for stories, since that's something that's so integral to what To Write Love is. How can we use community as a way to remind people that we care about their stories, we want to hear them, and we want to continue sharing them? So we definitely do ask people questions and try to create those conversations, so that we can learn more about them, and just let them know that, like, when we say your story matters, we really, really mean it. And we're going to prove that by listening and responding and showing you that, like, you're important to us. You're part of our community, and it wouldn't be the same without you.
Yeah. So if you live in the United States or Canada, you can be a part of our community. All you have to do is send a text to 321-204-0578. And now, full disclaimer, the first couple messages you get will be robots, just making sure that you get the information you need to be onboarded. But then everything after that is coming from a real life TWLOHA human being, to address any questions you have or any ideas you have, any stories you have, any fun pictures of your dog wearing a bandana that you have and you want to send it our way. So that is always an option for you if you get burned out on Twitter or TikTok or any of those. You can get back to basics, back through text. So again, that's 321-204-0578. So that is, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so one of my favorite parts of community, Bianca spends way more time in there than I do. And so 99% of the time, if you're interacting with us, you're interacting with her. But you get to add your birthday to your profile whenever you start on community. And so then it lets us know when people's birthdays are happening. And we get to text them and interact and celebrate their birthdays with them, which I think is pretty awesome, especially since we've been very much all about birthdays, and just seeing those as a time to remind people that they matter and that we're glad that they exist in the world. And so, yeah, that's just been fun to be able to log in and be like, oh, it's two people's birthdays today. Send them a little birthday message, and so.
And that's actually a great segue, because we're having this conversation for our birthday, and it's really cool, when you have an opportunity to get a really awesome gift, but we are about to give a gift. And Katie, I'm wondering if you would like to take the wheel here and introduce what this brand new gift is that we're giving the entire world.
So for all of you who have been asking, because we have seen your comments and your DMs, there is now a To Write Love on Her Arms app. Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. It's very hard for me to not just get up and dance around the table right now. But so the app is called The Hopeful. which if you have been around To Write Love for a while, you know that that is a phrase that exists in our world, the idea that we are the hopeful. And so the idea is that it can be literally a little bit of hope in your phone, which is probably in your pocket or very close by to you right now in this moment, especially if you're listening to this podcast. So it's just a space for us to be able to directly connect with you. I think working in social media, we understand that every social media platform has its own algorithm and how they decide what content you actually get to see and experience. And so I know for me, a lot of times I have to go searching for someone in particular if I want to see their content on a particular day. So this is a very easy way for you to be able to do that. And so the app includes a lot of the things that we have actually talked about over the last however long we've been having this conversation. So there is a daily quote. As soon as you open it up, there is a quote which comes from our late night encouragement posts that are now turned into these daily quotes. So there's an image that will show up in your app with some encouragement for you for your day, whenever it is that you happen to open it up. And you can come back and read it again later in the day if you need to. There is a space for you to indicate what your mood is in that moment as you're in the app, and then also to journal. And we have journal prompts that we have written, so we kind of can help guide your thoughts a little bit if you need that, or you can just write whatever it is that's in your head and that you need to kind of get out into the open in that moment. And then you'll be able to actually go back and track your mood and your journaling over the course of the last however long you have had the app, to be able to see, I've had a whole week in a row of really good days, and maybe even check into your journal entries and see if there's some information to help you see why maybe you're having a week of good days. And hopefully that can help you as you continue to care for yourself moving forward. In addition to all of that, there will also be blog content and podcast content from To Write Love on Her Arms, as well as periodically we'll share news about things like when we launch campaigns like our 5K or World Suicide Prevention Day. I was thinking about this as Bianca was talking about Googling the website every day to be able to go and find a new blog post to read. And so you don't have to do that anymore. They'll be right here in the app. All you have to do is open it up. There will be new blog content there. There will be new podcast content there. You can even bookmark things in the app and be able to save them and come back to them later. So if something really works well for you or helps you in your journey, you can come back and find it there. And then you'll also be able to access things like our Find Help tool, which is really super important to be able to get connected to those resources, especially when you're having a not so great day. And we know that those happen, and that's totally natural and part of being a human. And so we want to make sure that you can easily get connected to those resources, whether it's the Find Help page or we have a self-care page that we've created as well that has some different activities and things that you can do kind of in the moment to help get yourself back to a state of maybe being deactivated a little bit. And then you can kind of focus on where you need to go from there to continue caring for yourself. So I think that's
so Cliff's notes for... No, yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Katie. So the Cliff's Notes are, it is an app. It is called The Hopeful. It is available right now in the Google Play Store and Apple iTunes Store, wherever you get your apps, it is there. And the 3 pillars are mood tracking, journaling, and encouragement. So this is just another exciting way that we're finding, finding new and exciting ways to repeat ourselves or repeat myself. But this is just the next chapter in finding a way to use technology as a storytelling device. And again, the whole theme, the whole hope of everything we've done from day one on through day one of our 15th year is that you could feel seen, that you could feel heard and valued, that you could feel like you are in good company. So we're going to continue to grow past this. And I want to say thank you to Chris and Jamie for setting the stage, and thank you to Katie and Bianca for leading the charge, and for everyone on the team for giving so much of your heart and effort and grit to this, all in an effort to connect with you, the viewer, you, the listener, you, the hopefully current app downloader. But thank you for spending this afternoon or morning or night, whenever you're watching and listening. Thank you for spending that time with us. We cannot wait to spend more days in your presence. Thank you so much. And we're glad you're here.